Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing my Shimo sweater by Leeni. So this is the Shimo sweater. If you're interested in purchasing this pattern, I'll link it down in the description box below. The reason I picked this pattern is because I wanted to try some bobbles, which I've never done before. And this one has this beautiful design that runs down the front of the sweater using bobbles in twisted rib, as well as some additional ones on the wrist. So I think that this ended up looking really nice and classic. I've used 2 yarns to make this held together. I've used Knitting for Olive Merino, and I used just under 4 skeins to make this, and then Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair, which I used just over 4 skeins to make this. Both of these are in the colorway Rust, and I think that the end up color is really nice. That's one thing that I've really enjoyed about the Knitting for Olive mohair, is that the core of this yarn is an exact color match for the actual fluff. So the cheaper mohairs that I've used in the past, the core tends to be a lighter color, and so it's something that you can see in the knitting, whereas this one, it's really sort of blended in and whereas this one is much more blended in, and so you get a much more saturated effect in the finished sweater. So I've knit this up in a size small. If I had it over to do again, I would probably make a size medium. I find that the sleeve on this is just a little bit tighter than my preference. Even though I kind of like the body width on here, I think the sleeves could stand to be a little bit wider. Some of the things that I really liked about this pattern is the sort of resolution. So especially on the neckline here, you start with twisted rib, and the way that it sort of like blends seamlessly into the design I thought was really nice. And the same thing on the bottom of the sweater. The design sort of like dips into the ribbing and sort of blends seamlessly with that twisted rib, giving it a really nice effect. I also really just loved how the sleeves turned out. It's the same sort of lace pattern on the sleeve as is down the center front of the sweater, but I think it looks really cool to have that sort of like duplicate design somewhere else in the detail. This is my first time using this sort of yarn combination from Knitting for Olive. Up until this point, I had only used their pure silk, and I'm a little bit on the fence about it. I will say the finished garment is really nice. It's really soft. The mohair doesn't seem to be bothering me at all, even though I have no issue wearing my drops mohair, but it is slightly itchy. This one, I don't seem to get that sort of next to skin itchiness that I do with the cheaper mohairs. And as I had mentioned previously, you get a much more saturated color, specifically in a darker color like rust, than you would get with cheaper mohairs. However, I found the process of knitting with this yarn I did not enjoy. First off, even though they're wound into these little skeins, which you can do a center pull from, I hated pulling yarn from these skeins. They just stuck to each other, and it was really hard. They would collapse when they got to closer to the center, and then I was just stuck with this giant knot of yarn that I had to untangle. So I found that in order to use these, I had to rewind them myself on my ball winder, which I thought was really annoying. I don't mind winding balls when they come in a hank, because obviously that's the best way to use them, but I would expect something that's wound like this to be usable in the form that I bought it. So I found that a little bit frustrating. And then the other thing that I didn't enjoy about it was just that I found it really drying on my hands. I was constantly having to use lotion and stuff like that on my hands while I was making this sweater, because they would just get so dry and cracked, and there was no reason for it. At the time when I was knitting it, it was raining a lot, so the humidity was actually much higher in the area than I'm used to, but my hands were getting so dry from this yarn, and I've never had that problem before with any other yarn. So I'd say that like the knitting experience with these was not great, not my preference, but I do really appreciate the finished result and what it netted in. So in terms of doing bobbles, I would say I don't want to do bobbles again because I found them really tedious and annoying, but I do like the finished effect on this. I didn't really I didn't realize when I had picked this pattern how open this lace work was going to be. And I don't know if it's just because like I had looked at a bunch of photos and it was a lot baggier on the model than it is on me, but I definitely like can see my skin poking through a lot more in this lace work. So I have to look for an undershirt that sort of like matches this rust color, and I think I would be a little bit more comfortable in how it's turned out. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this look at the Shimo sweater, and I will see everyone next time. Take care.